In order here. Oh, hello. All right, greetings everyone, and welcome to our fourth Group Speak event, featuring today's incredible guest, Akia Gross, woo, and brilliant facilitator, Hugsy's own T Sarmina. My name is Caitlin Pomerantz. I use she and they pronouns, and I will just be sharing a few words to open up the event and get everyone oriented. I'm an arts and ed student and one of the Group Speak organizers, as well as an artist and educator in Philadelphia. And on behalf of the whole Group Speak team, I thank you all so much for being here today, for making time and space in this chaotic world to learn from one another. So thank you. Group Speak is a discussion series on art, education, and social justice that is curated by the students of the Arts and Ed program with funding from Hugsy and the Office for the Arts at Harvard. A big shout out to my fellow Group Speak colleagues, Ashley, Lucia Lee, and Garrett, if you all would just wave, for all the amazing teamwork that made this series happen, as well as our program director, Steve, for his ample support, and our whole cohort for suggesting incredible visitors and showing up. This spring, we have had the opportunity to speak with Sapake Angiama, Remy Gabatamosi, Kimathi Donkor, Mark Miller, Chip McNeil, and Carlos Simon. These conversations have been some of the most powerful and intimate spaces here on the internet. And today's discussion is a perfect opportunity to finish up this incredible series. A few quick logistical things. So we are recording the presentation and Q&A. So just keep your screen off if you don't want to be recorded, but we would love to see you otherwise. If you have any issues during the event, please message Garrett or Lucia Lee. They both have asterisks in front of their Zoom names. And after Key's presentation, T Sarmina is going to facilitate a Q&A. And you all are welcome to drop your questions into the chat or just raise your Zoom hand to chime in. And then around 2, we're gonna have some time for like a voluntary discussion. Feel free to drop off if you have to, or stick around, please. And with that, I will pass it off to T, who will give a more extended intro for Key. I was lucky enough to first cross paths with T in Dr. V's ethnic studies class, and I see Dr. V in the room, so woo! I was totally stunned by T's vision and presence. T Sarmina is a poet, pastry chef, high school educator, and founder of K Onda, an organization that centers storytelling as a tool for transformation, threading social justice with healing-centered engagement in themed composition books that invite youth to write the landscapes of liberation. And I'm gonna drop some links so you all can check that out. T and their cats will be graduating from Hugsy's Ed Policy and Management program in a few weeks. And with that, I pass it to you, T.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and thank you all for being here. I'm so honored to be here in community with you all, and then also be in conversation with Key, who I have admired and fan-personed over since I heard their wisdom, truth, fire, big love, vulnerability, and joy on the Abolitionist Teaching Network podcast last year. I was cooking when they said, "My philosophy is this. If we ain't too young for you to hate us, for you to sell us, for you to kill us, then we ain't too young to learn how to love ourselves enough to heal, to resist, to unlearn, to empathize, to understand, to fight back, and really, to get free." And I was struck at a standstill, because when poets teach, you can just feel their lessons sit steady in your bones. They embody teaching as a praxis of feeling, intuition as pedagogy, unlearning as song, and community as a cadence of Black liberation. They know transformation because they live it and create futures from liminal spaces. You can't tether spirit to the ground, and Key levitates. Woke Kindergarten is a love letter to generations of abolitionists that will author our future. I'm honored to introduce them today. Akia Key Gross is an abolitionist early educator, consultant, cultural organizer, and creative entrepreneur, currently innovating ways to resist, heal, liberate, and create with their pedagogy, Woke Kindergarten, a global abolitionist early learning community and creative expanse and consultancy supporting children, families, educators, and organizations in their commitment to abolitionist early education and pro-Black and LGBTQIA plus liberation. You can learn more about their work and watch woke read alouds by going to wokekindergarten.org and find them on Twitter at AkiaG and find them on Instagram at Woke Kindergarten, at Black Children Play, at Y Abolition, at Women Amplify, and at Sisters Unsigned. Caitlin will drop all those links as well. Thank you so much for being
Wow. Literally, I feel like I was tearing up. Like, wow, just thank you. That was a blessing. I feel like really honored to be in your presence and to be in conversation with you. And also your voice is so calming. You be moderating all these panels? Like get to all of them joints. Well, thank you so much for that. I really needed that, especially at this moment in my life. I'm gonna share my screen. And we are gonna wing this today, y'all, because it's been a week, it's been a month, it's been a year, it's been a lifetime, many lifetimes. So this, so much of, I think there's an art in humor. So much of how I get moved through things is humor. So I often call myself a jack of all trades, master of nothing, because fuck that word, it's a trash word. So we don't use that word for anything. But I'm Key. I am unemployable. Yay for everybody else who's unemployable. I've been lucky enough to understand that about myself now, and to be reminded of that by someone named Ify, who I really value and trust and love. And ultimately, I hate being confined in any capacity. I often say that I think my gender dysphoria is because like I don't connect with my body at all, and it feels like I have so many spirits inside of me that have been trying to escape, and so much energy, and I'm just like, yo, this is confining as hell. Like, what am I doing here? Like, who am I? What is this? So but that's ultimately why I love art, right? I love art. Art's freedom, and it can't be confined. All right, it's limitless. That's really on period, for real, on period. So these are my parents, and when I think about my life and myself, I really think about how art is lineage. So much of who we are and what we embody is in our blood, and oftentimes we don't even know. Especially if you're a Black or brown person in this country, it's really hard to be able to trace your lineage. And there are moments where you don't understand certain parts of yourself because you actually don't know where they came from. And so part of my work, part of my healing work has been to dive deep into my lineage. I did not give my DNA willingly. Okay, we don't do that here. But I really did go utilize so many online databases and resources to kind of trace my lineage. And if you're looking to do that, generally you're looking for birth certificates, death certificates, and marriage certificates. They have so much information. And so I've been able to do that. And when I did that, I came to discover, and my father's side of the family is from Newport News, York County, Virginia. And ultimately we can't trace our lineage back anywhere else but Virginia. So, that's on some real 1619 shit. And my father's, my patrilineal side, they were enslaved. And then my mother's side, her father's family, I found about 8 to 10 family members who were murdered in the Hungarian deportation in the Holocaust. And so ultimately what that means is that all of that kind of trauma just kind of comes straight to me because I'm their only child together. And so I feel a lot of that all the time. And you'll see soon that essentially for me, transmuting pain is really important. It's how I kind of move through this world. And generally, whenever I transmute anything, it is similar to what I think Black people have done in this country historically, is to create, right? We're just creative. And so much of that transmutation that I do really comes from trying to look and understand who I am inherently. Also, with my mom, when I reflect back on why I feel so like aligned artistically with so many things in my life, it's because I remember my mother was also constantly like writing poetry. She would always draw caricatures of me. Like, you know, back when we used to have them like lined, ruled yellow paper, and you would flip it over. She literally would draw caricatures of me. We would like draw each other. She wrote an entire novel on that once before. She does her own hair, like she cuts hair. And my mother was a high school dropout. And so what she ended up having to do for me when she had me young was like move into a field that is so uncreative, right? Like it is nothing aligned with what she wanted to do. And she did that in order to provide for me. So my mother often says, like, I'm doing all of the things that she would do in her life. And I swear to you, you know, as much as we fight, I look and I'm like, wow, like that's actually incredible. Like when I had long hair, my mother used to do my hair. It's just like she was attuned to so many things artistically, and yet how she's had to kind of live her life is so far removed from that. But then I think about the way in which she does things. And there's an approach, there's an artistic approach in the way in which my mother does her work. And so that's also so much of how I approach my life, is like art is an approach to things. It's the way that you strategize, the way you think about something, the way you process, like what steps are you taking? How are you going about it? Like, what are you analyzing? How does that work? And so art isn't just this thing, but it's also the way in which we do things. And I think about that often. So I talked about art is transmutation, right? And so Woke Kindergarten is essentially it's my healing in practice and in praxis. It's like when I rage, I create. This is what I can do. This is what I can offer myself. This is how I move the pain out of my body. I move the rage into a space and place that's really affirmative for not only like my inner child and our inner children, but for all of the babies who are having to endure their childhoods in this world right now. So Woke Kindergarten is that for me. It's literally the kind of removal of trauma from my body and the transmutation of it into something that's really life affirming and liberatory and healing. And then also, like, I'm a person who really struggles with anxiety and depression and so many things, ADHD. I'm also a highly sensitive person. And it was before understanding that term, I was very much pathologized, like a lot of us. And it was very much the deficit-based language of like what it means to be a sensitive person in this world. And I was just thinking like, wait, does it not make sense to feel the weight of the world is a disaster zone? Like, how are you not feeling anything? And so when I came to understand myself as a highly sensitive person, that shifted so much in me. And then all of a sudden I wasn't internalizing all of the harm that people were trying to perpetuate unto me. I started to be able to think about myself as someone who's just really attuned to caring about people and animals and earth and its existence and our existence. And so it was always hard for me to find an outlet. My outlets when I was younger were art. You know, I used to draw, plus I was an only child. So I would get all my stuffed animals together and like have class in school and like create and like make, draw characters and like do all of these things, right? But I also played basketball. And so growing up, at least as like, a millennial, I wouldn't say older millennial, but whatever, in my 30s, growing up, it was like you pick one. Because academics, you have to go to college. So academics is your one thing. What's your other thing? And so even though I did so many things, I played basketball. I played basketball year round for multiple teams. I was really good. So it was like, okay, basketball and sports. So art was like a side hobby, right? And so I used it a lot, often, kind of as an outlet. But what that meant was I didn't think of it as anything other than that. So I could never sit there and call myself an artist. I used to write all the time. I could never call myself a poet. I studied film photography. I can never call myself a photographer, right? But that's ultimately what white supremacy does to you, because it sits here and tells you that you can't ultimately be any of these things unless maybe you're making money off of it, or you're well established, or, X, Y, and Z. But art for me now as an adult, right? Like, I make these when I'm anxious and stressed. Like, I just started making digital collages one day because I was like, damn, I'm so anxious and stressed. How can I keep myself busy? And that's what this transmutation kind of looks like for me too. Being able to take my anxiety and my stress and move it again out of my body and create something different. These are some more that I created for Nina Simone and Mama Audrey. And art ultimately is teaching. When I talk about teaching, I really talk about teaching as an artistic practice. I'm always talking to educators and saying, like, if you don't approach this work as an art, then ultimately, like, kids will call your bullshit. Like, right? We should be approaching this as an artistic practice. The way in which we're engaging with children, the way that we're self-reflecting, how we're changing our practice when we realize that kids need our support in different ways, that, we're owning what we need to be owning to be able to do good work with and for them. And there's a way to kind of go about it. So I made these little videos the other day, kind of, again, as a release and as a joke. But there's, to me, when I do anything, there's like, it has multitudes, right? It's like, there's so much in it. And part of what I wanted to also show people is, like, our kids too are going to say some wild things, but if we're looking at teaching as an art, then we should be able to kind of maneuver around that to always call them in and bring them in no matter what. So I'm going to play this.
Today's book is called Saturday. Yes, it does go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You right. You did that. Okay. So the book is called Saturday. Yes, Davon? Oh, okay. So Davon wants to share that it actually goes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday. You're right. Thank you so much for sharing, Davon. Okay. Sending you love. Okay, so the book is called Saturday. It's about a child and their mom. Yes, what'd you say, Jocelyn? You have a mom? Yeah, okay, yes. So some of us have moms, and some of us have parents or guardians. What's a guardian? So a guardian is like somebody who watches over you. So, what was that? God watches over you?
Honestly, these are the conversations that we be having, right? And so the idea here is, like, kids, like, we often get frustrated with them, but, like, for me, teaching is such an art. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to move and maneuver and, like, respond, not react, right? And so this is part 2, and I think it speaks to it a little bit more.
Today's book is called Saturday. On Saturdays, they zipped to the library for weekly story time. Yes, Davon. What do they mean by zipped? Because zipping is for zippers and feet don't have zippers. Okay, you're right. But what does a zipper do, right? When you zip, you can, like, zip really fast. So here, they're really talking about getting somewhere really fast. Yeah, no, you on point. No, I appreciate you. So do you love. Okay. On Saturdays, they lounged in salon chairs and got new hairdos. Yes, Eniola. You get new hairdos too? Yes, you be in the salon? You're saying it takes 1,000 hours to get your hair done in the salon? No. Okay. No, I hear you, girl. Oh, you're just wondering, like, how are they going to the library and going to the salon and doing all these things because it takes 1,000 hours. You're right. I'm not sure, but, like, let's just finish checking out what Ava and their mom.
Oh, man. Do you ever laugh at yourself? Because I be thinking I'm so funny. But I think about teaching almost as theater. sometimes. Like, you can get up in front of kids and, like, especially young children, and act the hell out of whatever you're doing, like be super extra with, you know, oftentimes, like, just in, I mean, I think I've come into my own self, because I'm naturally super introverted, believe it or not. But it was because of my mother, who's the exact opposite of me, and because I taught, that I was able to come out of my shell, because I felt most safe with children. And we think about when we're able to come out of our shells, it's when we feel the most safe, right? Like, literally, I'm a Scorpio, and like Scorpions, we are about that stinger life all the time. So like, it's very rare that I'm gonna feel safe, but I feel safe around kids. And so if I feel safe, right, because I know I'm operating as my authentic self, because they can call me on that, then I could literally approach teaching as an art. It is literal theater to me. Before I move on, like back in when I was teaching in Harlem, my kids used to not want to eat their vegetables. We know this is because we lived in a food desert. Like, what was around, like they just didn't have these options. And so a lot of them just weren't used to eating certain vegetables. And so what I used to do is I used to just go hype them up. Like, if I saw anybody taking a bath, I'd be like, oh my, you're eating broccoli? What? And then really being super hype, and then saying like, wow, you're gonna get so strong. And then I would have them fist bump me and I would fall to the ground, because the strength of eating the vegetable was just too overwhelming for me to handle, right? Like, but that's what we should be doing. Approaching teaching in this way, where like, this is an art, how we move, how we respond, you know, our joy, right? There's an art to that.
On Saturday.
Move on. And again, like, when we're thinking about teaching as an art, we also think art as teaching, like utilizing it in many ways. When I taught phonics, I used to teach phonics through music a lot. I had a kid in my class who was a drummer, and he loved to drum. And so we would be learning how to segment words via drumming. When I was teaching my kids how to decompose numbers, this was back when Juju on that beat was hot. Okay, don't clown me. You can see that I have different hair. But when Juju on the beat was hot, I created a song called Juju on That Math, and that got my kids hype about learning how to decompose numbers at 4 and 5 years old.
Go stand here. Ready? Go. Juju on that math. Juju on that math. Juju on that. Juju on that. Juju on that math. Now ready? Stop. Make yourself go stop. Hey. Go stop. Hey. Go stop. Hey. Plus one from me. Plus one from me. Plus one another time. Plus one from me. Now count the rest. Count the rest. Count the rest. Hey. Do the opposite. Do the opposite. Hey. Hey. 91. Hey. It's 1 and 9. Hey. We make it Hey.
And so, like, just incorporating so much of our creativity into teaching, like, it is stripped from us when we're handed, you know, curriculum. It says, teach this, do it this way. My advice to y'all is, even when you're handed that, you don't have to do it in a very kind of like rote. You can bring yourself into it. How can I take this, deconstruct it, and still get what I need to get done? Ultimately, too, art is celebration, right? It's a celebration of life and who we are. I'm a big Kehlani fan, so when it's her birthday, I was like, let me make this. And I love Prince. Actually, like, yo, V, we remember when we ditched that, you know, Free Minds for a second with Bettina and Fari and everybody? We went to Paisley Park. We did. We went to Paisley Park together, and that was a vibe. And so I love Prince and everything that he stood for. So again, art as celebration. Dang, I have both of these. That was my team behind you. So my team and I'm part of a creative team of all kind of queer, non-binary, gender expansive, Black and POC folks. And we put on the first Pride event under the Archway in Dumbo called Archway Pride. And it was really dope. And so that picture behind us, behind this video represented that. But like, art is also like gender and expression and the ways that we kind of express ourselves. This piece, I think, is important because this element is so celebratory. We had a residency show at National Sawdust, and basically the show is called Seasons, A Voyage Through Sound. And my partner Sonic is profoundly deaf in one ear and hard of hearing in the other. And she is a singer, but like not just a singer, she's a singer. She can blow. And so we put together a show that was supposed to be 3 acts. We only got through 2 acts before the pandemic, which is very sad. And it was basically an exploration of how Sonic experiences the world, which is through vibration primarily. That's how she stays on beat. That's how she, you know, can sing, like through vibration. So we created an immersive experience at National Sawdust, which had like 360 speakers all around the space. So you were really immersed in this. And so when we talk about art as celebratory, like this is what it feels like, right? This is what it feels like. That's Sonic. It was a beautiful experience to create with your people, right? To celebrate with your people. And art is as much protection as it is resistance, right? We talk about art as resistance all the time, but it's so protective. It is so protective. It really does protect us. And when I was teaching, you know, we had a culminating celebration for a unit of study I created called Everyday Heroes versus Superheroes through the lens of Black history and resistance. And so the culminating celebration after that months-long study was called our Gallery of Heroes. And so we had an exhibit called Superhero Like Me, where kids really kind of tapped into their kind of everyday hero traits, generosity, compassion, all of these things. But we also had an exhibit called Don't Touch My Hair. I love my hair, don't touch my hair. Based on a moment where one of my kids was like really, she straight up was like, I hate my hair, I don't like it, you know, and these are Black children, right? And so we know where that comes from. They're often carrying so much of what's not theirs. And so art also has to be disruptive. And so in this way, like, it's not about us creating art that's disruptive, but again, the approach, we need to be disruptive too sometimes. So in order to disrupt that narrative, we came up with using our kind of multimedia collage skills that we learned at Studio Museum to create this gallery of I love my hair, don't touch my hair. And it was immersive too, because we listened to Solange while we were doing it, and it was real cute. And then again, for me, like, we are often spirit murdered in institutions, right? And so part of my exit, part of how art was protective for me in being in these spaces and places was I started to create more with my team and came up with an idea for a concert series, an underground concert series in Brooklyn called Sisters Unsigned. And our goal here was to amplify the voices of women, non-binary, gender expansive artists, independent artists of all mediums. And we realized that, like, going, you know, when Sonic had shows, that's the name of my partner, when she had shows and we would go to different venues in New York, like, of course, they're super oppressive, like they're unsafe, especially for queer folks, especially for women, especially for gender expansive folks. And so we created this because we wanted to be able to amplify our folks and our people and build community. And that's what abolition is, right? Like building community. And so that kind of artistic resistance, healing, and creativity that I somehow forgot that I possessed, like being in school, it came flowing through me whenever I felt under attack, because ultimately my response was to resist creatively. And so we built this concert series, and it honestly, like, of course, you know, we paused it because we had the residency, but then of course the pandemic happened, but we can't wait to get back to this, right? Like, this is what people are itching for now. It was an incredible experience. We ran it out of a recording studio in Brooklyn. And so we not only had like visual artists, but we had poets, we had spoken word artists, we had performers, so like hip hop artists, R&B artists, whomever, right? And we just built this community together. We built the stage, we ran the sound, we ran the bar, we had our own DJs, and we just did the damn thing. And it was such an incredible experience. And this is really what helped move me out of that really kind of oppressive space that I was in when I was in schools. And then ultimately, art is communal, right? Couldn't have done it. Like, I feel like we create the best art when we're in community with those who love us and who we love. And so that doesn't mean we're always creating together, but we get a lot of inspiration from the people that are around us, right? And And so this was us the last day, like right when shutdown happened. This was March 12th, 2020, at Kennedy Center. We were the last show. We took the residency there, and what makes me almost want to cry. It was such a vibe. We really we did the damn thing. My homie Melee, who you see on the right, she also edits my Woke Read Alouds videos. She is self-taught. It is almost her birthday. And this is like my ace. And see, I'm telling you, these artist kids in New York, please love on them because they are the best. And so this was us celebrating right after that, before we knew we needed to wear masks and probably shouldn't have gone to Dave & Buster's that weekend. But we all ended up being fine. So art is communal, right? This is a little snippet from Women in Hip Hop. We did a Women in Hip Hop show with all women, non-binary, Black producers, and like, cause you never see a producer cipher with people who look like us, and this was it. That's Kumbaya in the middle. That's Brown Jewel on the left, and that's my homie Solar, multi-instrumentalist, producer, engineer extraordinaire. Such a vibe, right? Like art is communal. It's how we celebrate each other, like being in community with one another. This brings me so much joy. I don't know how to get past it. There we go. And ultimately, art is also release. It's release. Even again, not just what we do, but the ways in which we approach these things, right? The fact that now, as in like, at least where I am now, I can sit here and kind of be so in tune with my body and where I am in whatever space I'm in, and sit here and say, okay, Key, like you need to pause, right? Like take a breath. The way in which I approach my release is part of it. That in itself is an artistic practice, especially if you like me and you feel like you're like an angry little person, righteously so, but you know that like sometimes that the anger has nowhere to go. When you are able to stop yourself from kind of, falling back into the same patterns that you used to fall back into because you didn't have any other way, you didn't know any other way, you weren't at that point in your healing, that is art. To be able to do that, right? That is a type of release that we don't celebrate enough. So I love that you said you're a poet because, so much of how I release too is writing. And I had not written for years. And then I was walking in Prospect Park the other day and I saw kids from Maple Street School, and it was raining. It was super early. I had taken my dogs in the rain to the waterfall. And I wrote this poem on the left when I was walking home because they were just enjoying themselves. And so I found myself kind of moving through, like having a lot of dissonance because I was so hyped that these kids were able to play in the rain. And I thought, wow, all Black children deserve this. And yet there's so many layers to why we don't see this happening for them as much. And then I thought about myself and how, so much of like childhood was like, no, you can't go play in the rain. Like you're gonna get sick. Like you can't get dirty, all of these things. And so I was experiencing all these emotions that I wrote this while I was walking my dog. And it goes, had I the chance to dance in the rain, I might have grown to love my tears sooner, or understood that I could water earth as she waters me. And really for me, it was like, yo, maybe I would be able to, love the parts of myself that I grew up hating so much, which was my sensitivity, which was my like hyper empathy and my compassion for the world. Maybe if I had the chance to feel more liberatory in my body and my feelings, maybe things would have been different. And then, of course, we always create. So a lot of us create from pain, right? A lot of us create from pain and it helps us feel better. And so this second one is, I saw you were hurting. I wonder if that's what it was like when you hurt me. I wonder if we're more alike than you led me to believe. Like maybe I tag you because I'm it and you run because you know you'll never be. And so taking that, like taking is the idea of like taking your power back. You know, like when someone wrongs you, you're immediately like, what's wrong with me? What did I do? This, and that. And then you're like, wait, hold up. Actually, let me flip the script real quick. Right. So we have to do that in so many parts of ourselves. And like, I mutually separated from my job this week, and this is how I feel about them. How about that? I can apply that, right? I can apply this to that. And then, and I'm gonna wrap up soon because I know we gotta go because I went a little bit over, but I want y'all to see this kind of art again as Eason. This is my partner. We creative directed this component of the show together. And again, I told you that my partner's profoundly deaf in one ear. Also, shout out to us and Anna, who's on here. We took queer ASL for 8 weeks. And so we finished ASL 101, which is really dope. We're really excited. And so this moment is really important, I think, as a release in who Sonic is and like essentially how she experiences the world.
You're gonna be off key, awfully a lot. They're gonna spot your weaknesses, I feed off them. Gazpacho got your attention, did I mention? Everything will go wrong in a whole song, particularly if that note is wrong. Hold on to me. If you have 2 doubts, hold on to 3. I will grow strong and be your rock, but I won't skip. You are not very good. You can't do this. You can't do this.
That was a homie Kumbaya who you saw producing earlier, who's also a drummer. We keep it in the fam, and that's the idea of like that inner voice, that doubt that's always trying to get you to come, and you're fighting against it, but you got folks in your corner, right, that are always keeping you grounded. So again, art is release. Art is abolition, ultimately. Art is abolition, right? These are, look at what we do. Look at how we resist. Look at the futures that we create. Very similarly, with abolition, like we have to be able to freedom dream, and that's where woke wonderings comes in. And then ultimately, art is preservation, right? Of moments, of ourselves, of culture. So I told y'all I really love film. I gotta contact you too, and it's like so hype about it. Black Joy.
Black Joy.
Preserving Black Joy. And then ultimately, I kind of wanted to end with this. Again, this is Sonic, and Sonic and I have known each other for 6 years. And the first song that I ever wrote was based off a poem that I wrote about her. And the first song I ever wrote was Freebird. And we write together, we create together. So these are Sonic's albums, and it makes me emotional. But Sonic never knows whether or not she will go completely deaf. And so when I talk about art as preservation, right, of who we are and where we are, her music, the fact that it's out and it exists in the world, right? That is preservation of like who she is in these many different moments, all of the seasons of Sonic. And to make it even better, I'm gonna show you how this, ties in. I shot all of these covers. So that's how we work. We work together, we create together, and we our homie Solar, who you saw, our homie Melee, like we designed all the sets, we creative directed everything together. Solar produced the album, engineered the album, we all wrote together, we did the videos together. So like art as preservation. So again, I'm still not sure if I call myself an artist, but I'm definitely a multi-hyphenate creator. And then just a little humor. No one seems to appreciate how I'm good at everything I do. Which is generally, I always tell people like my strength is to be able to learn. tend to pick up on things pretty easily. But this is hopefully, art is confidence, right? And I'm learning that too. So if I'm sitting here telling you that maybe I'm still not ready to be like, oh, I'm an artist. I've gotten to the point where I can sit here and say I'm a multi-hyphenate creator, and I'm moving towards being able to lay claim to my brilliance and who I am. So thank you.
Woo! Should we unmute and noise it? Woo!
Oh, amazing.
Love you, Key.
Wait, that is big Scorpio energy. Oh, Sonic's here. Yay. That's funny. No, I appreciate that. That is some big Scorpio energy. Period.
Man, my heart's beating. Like I feel alive after that. I also I'm gonna leave space for questions for everyone, but one, can we start a basketball team of educators is my first question. And then second is, what is next for Woke Kindergarten? You're at this place of like, at the end of this week, in this raw place, right? Where in this place, like, what's that freedom dream look like? Like, what's like wildest, like, all right, I just made this big decision to not listen to that voice that's telling me I can't do anything, and the impossible is possible. So like, what is that?
So you're saying basketball team of educators.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying?
That's my first question, and then the second question is freedom dream. What's next for Woke Kindergarten?
It's so different. It's so interesting. Like, I think that it would have to be. I just think who society says are educators is like so different than how many of us, I think, too, who are pretty kind of artistically inclined or aligned, or even like abolition focused. Like, for me, like, educators are the folks primarily who aren't the ones in the classrooms. Like, if I'm thinking about who I've learned, like, I learned the most not in schools. And I have 4 degrees. What did I learn there? I don't know. I learned how to just like navigate spaces. So for me, I think my basketball team of educators would ultimately be, I could either go like the ancestral route, or I could go, actually, I would even say like my living ancestors, I would say I would put a basketball team of kids together. I would put a basketball team of kids together, and those would be the educators for me, the kids that I learned from. I would say one of my kids, Kaylin, who one day, basically, I don't know if you're familiar with like 125th in Harlem, but they, erected a Whole Foods right by our school. We were on 124th and Lenox, and we had never gotten any like lunch breaks. And so when they erected the Whole Foods, like, it was the only healthy thing by us, and the Whole Foods employed a lot of our kids' families. Because like Whole Foods is not gonna discriminate against your tattoos or your hair and all these things, and so they also accepted EBT, and so it was a struggle, right? Because there was nothing else healthy, really, in the hood, and we couldn't get to anything. So like a lot of us would go to the hot bar, and when we would come back, like in our little 5 minutes, I remember Kaylin came up to me one day. She was like, this is back when I went by Miss, but she was like, Miss Akia, why do the teachers get the good food from Whole Foods and we have to eat what we eat in the cafeteria? And I was like, you're right, that's so unfair. Like, and we had already been kind of, doing a writing unit on writing like persuasive letters. So we just had a whole conversation about who could she write in the school to let them know, like, this isn't okay, like, this isn't right. And this child forever inspired me. She was like a mini me. She's like a mini me. Also, I would probably add one of my kids, Kaylee, to that. A lot of them are just going to be little Black girls. The little Black girls who are always overlooked in these spaces and places. I'm telling you, like, this would be my basketball team. Kaylee, who went to the first grade, who was like leaps and bounds beyond any of what the curriculum could give her, had a white man teacher who basically kept sending her out of the classroom every time she would advocate that shit was too easy for her. She was then belligerent. This is a child who never got in trouble. Like, the worst thing that Kaylee ever did was like she cried when she got something wrong. Like, and so I would put her on my team. I'll put my little the last one I'll say is a little girl named Jezariah. She was a twin. She ended up having to repeat kindergarten. She you know, like, of course, our schools fail our Black children. And she and her twin, basically, they were pulled out of the school, went to another school for a little bit, and then they were brought back to my school. And in New York, you can be 4 up until December 31st. So like if you have a child who has a really late birthday, sometimes repeating is not as horrible as it would be if they have like an earlier birthday. So she came back and she was in my class and she didn't speak at all. And she was a little Scorpio child. She was not talking. But when I tell you the brilliance that this child had, just to like the way that she approached everything and how she moved and what she did and how caring she was. One day I watched her take all the books out of the bin and then reorganize them. And I thought to myself, are you the one child in my class that has common sense? Because, you know, sometimes the kids don't be having common sense. You be like, yo, you're so smart. But that baby, I will never forget when she kicked me in the chest with her Tims, but I will also never forget when she held my hand to the end, right? Like we got there. And so my kind of educator basketball team would always be my children.
I love that. I love that. I love that it's with, you talked about empathy being something that is sort of schooled out of you, or like, you know, you hold this huge feeling for the world and you think that it's something wrong, but like I love that you're able to see the bigness in everyone, right? Like know how to channel it to like, okay, hey, you hold so much in you, where can we put that, right? I love that. My
And
second
kids are comrades. They're comrades. You know, we have to look at our children as comrades, right? In my workshops, I talk about we have to view kids as self-determined participants in co-creating liberatory futures. Like we have to go to them because for us, so much of our imaginations have been stripped away and our natural empathy and compassion because we're out here trying to survive.
Yep.
And sometimes we put all of that survivalist trauma onto them because we want to protect them. Especially, you know, Black and brown folks in this country. And so our kids, right? Like when they're disrupting, when they're doing things, we need to kind of reposition them as self-determined participants. So my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like definitely keep us comrades.
And please feel free to drop questions in the chat, y'all. My other question was, let's get wild, freedom dreaming. What's next for Woke Kindergarten? Is it publishing children's books? Is it like what? No limits.
Yes, no, like there's no limits. Like
there's no limits.
And I'm actually really hyped. I walked away from a severance yesterday, which I'm, you know, working through, but I walked away because I refused to be silenced about my experience in the harm den. And really tried to move towards a path of community accountability. I was like ready to heal with my org, and they just were not about it because they were scared of what I might say in a community forum. So, you know, this is where we are. And honestly, that fueled me into even dreaming bigger about what Woke Kindergarten could be. Because I want y'all to remember when places and institutions like take you there, your best revenge is thriving. So, okay, y'all didn't value me. Y'all think, okay, let me go show you that. Let me go show you. And so with Woke Kindergarten, like all I needed was my time. I found myself so behind on things because I just didn't have my time anymore. So I had all these dreams of what I wanted to do and I couldn't get to them because I didn't have my time, which is the most valuable asset, your time. It's not money. It's not any of those things. It's literally time. And so with Woke Kindergarten, absolutely, I want to kind of have my own, I don't know, like self-publishing house in a way, because a lot of the resources we create, I would love for them to be tangible. Right now, now I can finally focus on working on this like curricular zine that we're developing. So it's like a zine, but like it'll be through like a curricular lens so that families can access it and use it at home and like kids can interact with it. So I'm trying to community source different, like really dope folks to contribute to that. I'm putting together an IG live series called Snack Time. Hopefully, you know, Dr. V will be on it. But really it's about like what's your freedom food, and me just chopping it up with people who generally you might not like, artists and other people, and we're kind of doing this work, having this conversation through an early childhood lens. Because back in the day, right, snack time honestly was one of the most liberatory times of the day. So where you got together and you just like, you know, chopped it up with your friends. Like sometimes for teachers, us too, we finally were like, ooh, we can go eat some goldfish with these children. Lord, let me eat some. Let me have some of those. Let me have some of them nasty cranberry little thing raisins. Let me have some of those. So snack time is really dope. I'm also putting together a podcast. And so I have a little character that I have my homie who's also part of my team, Fernanda, who they created kind of in my likeness. But they're like a little non-binary trans kid, like kindergartner, who's kind of like the face of Woke Kindergarten. And so the podcast is going to be a storytelling podcast of like, how, really kind of introducing kids to abolition in these ways. And so that's another thing that's coming. And then ultimately I want to put together more kind of like video elements. So, in early childhood, we have like morning meeting. I'm hoping to be able to put together like the wake up, just different things. Also planning to put something together for like phonics and phonemic awareness called Producer ABCs, and like working with my homies who are producers and engineers to like create this like phonics, episodes for kids to learn, to learn their ABCs. And yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot of creative stuff coming. I'm in the process right now of like, I've applied to a couple of fellowships. So cross your fingers for those. Someone said in chat, are they hiring? Listen, I can't even pay myself right now. So what we doing is we trying to bring, I'm trying to get to a point where I can actually like hire my team. Cause right now I am doing a lot alone, and people often say like I volunteer, but I really struggle with not paying folks, and also very protective of the energy that's around me. So I'm working to that. I'm working to really become operational in those ways without sacrificing my values. So Woke Kindergarten will never take any type of investment, any type of like investment that means we have to adhere to something or somebody owns something, because, abolition is not a brand. And so really it's a way, it's how we have to move. And so really that's why you see me trying to community source. So like community donations, Patreon, like really relying on that, and like grants from like organizations or foundations that don't require me to conform or comply to anything.
Yes. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go into the chat because I want to give space to everyone here in community with us. Are there questions here? I have a lot of questions.
Wait, the crayon raisins, the crayon raisins that the little throw, they get stuck in your shoes and bring ants into the classroom. Why is that so true? They were everywhere. Oh my God, that's so funny and triggering at the same time.
Crayon raisins. I'm not seeing any questions here, but if there's anyone too that wants to just chime in, anything that you resonated with, like, yes, Yenny, before it.
Hi, I'm so stoked. I just really enjoyed all the speeches. First of all, Key, that you were here for at Harvard, and so I was just really excited to be in the space with you. But I had a question real quick. When you said about community accountability, like something that's been on my mind is like it's less towards like educating people outside of like a certain level of awareness and more about like accountability within this circle also. Thinking about like how when people come into the space and we share the same language, that accountability piece like for each other, how have you felt yourself kind of exploring the limits or like pushing the limits or stretching what accountability means like within even this like safe space?
Such an amazing question, and really so aligned to my experience, because when I'm thinking about accountability, I really only think about it kind of with us. I just do not have any expectations of white supremacy at all. So like, for me, like that's a whole different thing. And I really know that so much of our like movement towards liberation is impeded by the fact that we've internalized so much trauma that we end up often perpetuating harm and sometimes don't even know that we're doing it. And I think I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, but I do know that for me, accountability and empathy go hand in hand. So I really first start by trying to extend grace to my peoples. I try to sit here and be like, I like could not imagine either what you've gone through, right? Especially if they're my elders, right? Extending empathy because I know how we often carry so much that's not ours. Sometimes we don't even know how to not carry that, like how to let it go, how to release it. But so much of being able to even move towards accountability is like people have to listen, and that has not worked well at least for me. Like, you know, if we're trying to, if we're starting with empathy, leading with empathy and saying, listen, like, I understand, you know, I know that was probably frustrating, like even sometimes at our own expense because we end up being the ones harmed, right? There's only so much you can do to try and pull and call people in, even when they're your own folks, if they're not listening. Because when that happens and then you've expended all of your energy and you're not receiving the same grace in return, which is what happened to me at my job. The unfortunate part is that the person who caused me the most harm was a Black woman, a cishet Black woman. And it was so painful, and it's actually really painful to say out loud because it's hard again, right, to have those conversations in community. It's even hard for me because I'm like, what does this mean when I say this thing? What am I doing? But at the end of the day, too, we operate within multiple intersectional identities, and so there has to be accountability around the fact that, like, we can both be Black and cause each other harm, and you can be a Black person with more, you know, positionality in like at least your gender and sexuality privilege, and so you can oppress me in X, Y, and Z ways for certain things. And like, you know, I spent so much time trying to call people in and have this empathy for people, and that grace was never extended to me. And ultimately, it was just like, what do? You know, at some point, you know, my last ditch effort when I was separating was I didn't want to sign a non-disparagement agreement because I don't believe in buying silence. My last ditch effort was to say, like, a homie of mine basically was like, why don't you have like a community town hall with all of our alumni in our community, and let's do that thing. And we came to an agreement. Me, the CEO, the chief of staff, we came to this agreement that that's what we would do. And I was like, cool, that's all we need to do, and we can heal together. And the same person who was causing me harm is the one that blocked it and countered with something totally different, which was like, let's have a one-on-one interrogation where we'll record your story. I'm like, I've been telling my story to y'all. Y'all haven't been listening. This isn't the point. So I say all that to say, like, I don't have a solution. I'm trying and trying and trying. And then ultimately, sometimes you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, you're no longer my work. And you're somebody else's work. I'm not throwing you away, right? Like, not at all. But this is no longer my work because I have to protect myself and my spirit. And then part of accountability is being able to open up and have these conversations with one another instead of keeping them buried. Because when we're able to share with one another our experiences of frustration, then we can maybe start to move somewhere.
Wow, thank you so much. so much. I know some folks have to drop off at 2. Are there any last questions before we phase into kind of a group discussion? Okay, well, let's just.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody who came on who has to leave. I appreciate y'all. Please stay safe because the world is opening. We're not learning, but everything's opening in Maryland on May 1st, and everything's opening in New York in July. So, yay us.
Oh, man.
All right, well, that's just thank you so much, Key. That was, I don't have words for everything you just offered, but I think we are all so grateful, and that will give to us over time. So thank you so much. And T, thank you so much for moderating that. And if you want to stick around and, you know, keep discussing with us, you're both invited, but and actually Garrett is gonna kind of lead us into some discussion.
Yeah, and T, thank you so much. You're a phenomenal person. Like, can we exchange information? Like this, like, you're so dope. Your energy is so, like, it just radiates.
I'm
But
good.
you,
I'm
yeah.
containing it, man. I'm just like, keep it boiling, slow simmer. Just, but I'm like, my fire's raging. So I appreciate being in this space.
Thank you both. Your T and Key were just like this painting of what this conversation and this collective is meant to be to us at AIE, and we are sending you all the radical love from AIE Hugsy straight to you, and this is to the whole group. This is our 4th of 4 series. We could not be more thrilled with how it closed out this semester, but we don't want this to end. We don't know what that means. But the connection that has happened over the last 4 events has been so beautiful. And we'd love to just keep in conversation about what this might look like. I can't wait to be back in person, but also the fact that we can be on the internet and come together across the globe is something that won't be annoying when we also can be in person. So we can use it to our advantage and love at that point. So thank you. I'm going to pass it back to Tia if you have any questions to kind of lead us into a discussion, if you'd like. Again, this is a super voluntary space. I know we're all holding lots of various thoughts and feelings and things that we maybe want to talk about, and we're maybe by ourselves in a room alone, which is my experience. So I would love to stay on for 20 minutes, half an hour. Thank you all for coming. This couldn't happen without every single person in the room. So T, back to you.
Okay, y'all. I have a lot of questions about everything in life and love and intimacy and education, all sorts of things. But I'm gonna keep us. I want to. I was just thinking about